So I'm on vacation, but who cares? Let's talk about Cobra Kai. What's up, Netflix fans? Cobra Kai Season 6 is here. Today we're talking no spoilers and then spoilers because something happens at the end of Part 1 and I want to discuss it.
We've been through a lot to get to this point, but now we're finally on the same page.
With Cobra Kai eliminated from the Valley, our senseis and students must decide if and how they will compete in the Sekai Taikai, the World Championships of Karate. And so the stakes are massive. But again, this is a Part 1. Part 2 is coming in November, and then Part 3, or a movie, will be next year. Oftentimes, I don't love that because I'm a very impatient person, especially with what this Part 1 was able to do. I liken it to something like how the Deathly Hallows Part 1 set the stage for Deathly Hallows Part 2. It laid out the puzzle pieces, didn't necessarily start fitting anything together. That's kind of what the beginning of Season 6 feels like, where all of our characters that are at least a part of this one dojo have made up. They have common ground. Now, obviously, there's going to be bickering between them, and not everyone is going to stay that way. But in the beginning, finally, we're able to explore some of that commonality, and we're not consistently and constantly hating each other. Example. Miguel and Robby. Now, we've been seeing this play out for a bit, but it's cool to see them not constantly trying to kill each other. That's nice. And even on the other side of things, Samantha and Tory, all the beef that they've had. Now, they're not necessarily friends, but they've been able to bury the past, for the most part, in such a way at the beginning of Season 6 that allows us to see a different side of these characters, and that I feel like is really cool. Now, that's the kids. On the adult side of things, it's not as smooth, because smooth sailing is not a thing when you have Daniel and Gianni in the same room, and they can't seem to come to a consensus on a lot of very integral ideas for this new combination of Miyagi-Do. What are we going to call it? That's a discussion that we have in the first episode. What are we going to name this dojo? And some of the kids are trying to come up with a name. Of course, they can't decide, and Chosen's just sitting there like, guys, stop fighting? By the way, I like some of the different pairings in this season, especially early on. Chosen and Johnny going around trying to find Johnny a house, and Chosen being fully aware of how the market works and how to go about this process, which is funny in itself because of the way they set that up. But then Johnny, of course, ruining all of the progress that he gets, and how that plays out in the first few episodes. It's just little gags and ongoing bits like that in Season 6 that allowed me to be fully entertained with these little side stories going on and fleshing out some of these side characters that maybe I didn't expect. Raymond gets a role in the first couple of episodes and allows Johnny to make a decision regarding how he's feeling about something. And so I just enjoyed all of the little details that we're getting in this final season that's divided into numerous parts. Now, I do feel like some characters were left on the back burner and did not get hardly anything this season. Anthony, specifically, I was worried for a second that Kenny wouldn't get anything to do. That changes very quickly, and so, again, these subplots really worked, but it's our main four that I'm super interested in, especially by the end of this Part 1, competing to take on the leadership roles, both male and female, within this dojo. And obviously, I mean, you could probably predict how that's going to go in terms of who is facing who, but it does give us something to look forward to, and that's what I was worried about this being a Part 1. I didn't know if we had anything to look forward to at the end of this half of the season, or are they just going to build, and then leave us on a huge cliffhanger at the end of Part 1, looking forward to November. And they do that, but at the same time, I really like what we got in Part 1 when we take a break from all of the action, which we're doing a lot of in the beginning. And Hawk and Demetri, speaking of which, are really fun in this season. And while I liked getting to see a different side of these characters, part of me was concerned because in the first 2 episodes, I'm thinking, I know we're building up to this tournament. Are we going to get there in Part 2? Probably, but it does kind of feel like they're stretching some things out and just trying to come up with plot points to feel this Part 1. Again, setting the stage, laying the groundwork, laying out all the puzzle pieces, but we haven't really started putting anything together. Now, by the time we get to the end and we do get that competition to see who will lead us into battle, that's cool. And the tension between Daniel and Johnny, that's probably the biggest amount of tension that we see in this season. Now, on the other side of things, with Kreese building that side of the tournament, him gathering his troops, but also exploring his past. Now, we've seen Kreese explore his past numerous times throughout these 6 seasons, but in one episode of this season, he's kind of facing his demons. I mean, literally and metaphorically. I like the way that they went about that. It's adding another element to Cobra Kai that I believe feels a little fresh. We've seen similar-ish things before, but I love what they were doing with Kreese's story, weaving together past and present, but also tying in what's going to make that side of this plot really interesting come part 2, and then how that ties in with where we go in the finale of this part 1, leaving us off, of course, on a massive cliffhanger, but a cliffhanger that does feel worth a lot of the things that we spent our time on. And while a couple of these moments, integral moments, are a little cheesy and over the top, that's kind of what we love about the show. And so I have somewhat conflicting feelings on part 1 overall. You know, I feel as if they did stretch out some moments between characters, but I did thoroughly enjoy a lot of the things that we got. Character combinations, how they developed certain parts of this story, the fact that the kids weren't bickering as much, it was more so the adults, and how they're slowly building Kreese and his side of things and Cobra Kai to come to a head in the second part and the third part. Now, I do want to talk spoilers really quick, and really the final thing that happens with Tory. And so, spoiler warning, 3, 2, 1, you get it. Tory's mom dies, and so that causes LaRusso, both LaRussos, to kind of stop this fight. See, Johnny, he's really pissed off about that because the way that he approaches things is he wants her to get that anger out there because her mom died. But clearly what she's going through and the fact that she's very unstable going into this fight, it's not the right time for her to fight Samantha. I think we know that. A lot of the characters within the show, they know that. Even Robby, he's like, whoa, hey. But Tory's not happy very clearly. Johnny's not happy. He tells Daniel, I'm done. I am not fooling with you anymore after this tournament. We are not going to be working together any longer. Tory, which part of me expected this to happen after she pulled out, but the way that they go about that reveal, admittedly, is really cool. The music crescendos are 2 teams that we're going to be focused on in this tournament. They're facing each other. Tory steps in. Admittedly, it was somewhat fulfilling after her conversation with Kreese and the way that Kreese feels about her. But the fact that she steps in to take on our team once more, it does feel repetitive. It's kind of like all these like the boys right now. Everybody's like, they're just doing the same thing over and over. Yeah, it's kind of repetitive, but the way that they went about it with that story and what's been happening to her mom, we knew it would lead to this, but I didn't know this would lead to her leaving the team and going on the other side of things and ending up with Kreese. That was really cool. And if they were going to do something in this part 1 that felt fulfilling in that way, even though they're leaving us on a cliffhanger, I believe that's the way to do it. And so I, for one, was really content with the way they ended off part 1, and I am like on the edge of my seat ready for part 2. But again, we don't get that huge payoff because it is a part 1, and a lot of it is just setting the stage for what is to come. So if you're okay with that, I think you're really going to enjoy Season 6, Part 1. But I don't know if I can even give this a score because it does feel like one half to an inevitable whole that could be amazing. I just don't know if there's enough there yet. That being said, if you can't tell, I still thoroughly enjoyed myself. There's not that one big fight that I am super pumped and thrilled to talk about. But there's 1 or 2 fights in every episode. All of them, for the most part, are really good. The adults clearly don't move as good as the kids, but the choreography has always been great. They do experiment with some camera angles in this season that I haven't seen yet. That's cool. But that's what we're getting in part 2. We're getting the tournament that we've been waiting on for a long time, and what is going to help a lot of our characters find success if they're able to do well. Miguel especially, because he kind of needs this. Well, he needed to beat Robby, but he didn't do that, and that's a spoiler as well. So we're still in spoiler talk. All right, what did you all think of Season 6, Part 1? Does it feel too much like a Part 1? Are you excited for Part 2? Let me know your favorite character, your favorite storyline, your thoughts on the ending, all of those things down below. I am so pumped to see what we get next. And is it a final batch of episodes? Is it a final movie? I don't know. I haven't seen that announcement. Maybe you all have. Appreciate you for watching, and I'll see you soon.